All right. Welcome to Black Pearl. I'm Michael Beemer with Skagit College. We're here today to talk about refitting old sailboats and what it involves, what it entails. So this is my happy place. It's 47 Skookum Motor Sailor, built by a good friend of mine, Ed Monk Design, and treats us real well. So it's a nice quiet spot to sit here and chat about boats for the Seattle Boat Show. I've been presenting with the Seattle Boat Show for many, many years and teaching for Boat Show University, and we've taken on this great new project, and so I thought we'd share some information. So what you can expect out of today's presentation is a lot about decisions we've made, the process we're going through, resources that we can share, all sorts of this, associated cost, on and on. So we are in the middle of refitting a Westsail 39 sailboat, and so it's been quite a journey. Okay, to start with, why would you refit a boat? Well, there's a lot of reasons. A lot of people think you can save money, you can buy a bargain boat, and while there are a few instances where that works out, let me tell you right out the gate, been in this industry a long time and talked to lots of people. So why? Well, you could be crazy like us. That's one really good reason. But the other is it's just not really for everyone. I don't recommend it unless you have a huge skill set. So, I mean, and there are some really good reasons why. You might have a boat that you're in love with. It might be a family boat that's been in for generations and it's just old and you need to redo it and it's going to cost more money than buying a comparable boat, but that's okay. You know, there's reasons like that, I think. But if you really want to get out on the ocean and go sailing, then there might be some better avenues to do that. So you really, really got to be careful. And so lots of stuff on YouTube. I've seen plenty of channels, people 2, 3, 4 years into it, refitting a boat and then finally getting out on the ocean. So, you know, maybe you own the boat and you think it's your perfect boat, and that'd be great. So before you jump into a major refit, so this video is about major refits, make sure you ask a lot of questions. Make sure you create some spreadsheets. You take your notes, you know, pluses and minuses, pros and cons, whatever it is you need to do, and look at a lot of the information that's out there, because it's a boat, and you know, there's so many unknowns. So if you want to go down that path and do it yourself, you got to have a lot of skills and you really got to enjoy it. You have to be doing that for the process of enjoying it, not necessarily to save a buck. Okay. And if you're paying for a refit, you got to understand there's so many unknowns and hard things that come up. And so how do you make all that work? Well, I think it's expectations and knowing what you're going to bite off and do. We decided, meaning my staff, Skagit College, that we're a school and we need to provide students with authentic learning opportunities. And that said, we don't need to make a profit, and we have a shop. So we are a perfect resource here in the Northwest to refit some boats, document costs, give students great experiences, on and on. So I don't have to make a profit. I, however, cannot lose money according to my boss. So there is that little tidbit. So, and by the way, we're talking about refitting old boats. Don't think that just because you go out and buy a brand new boat, you won't have issues. There's usually less. Or buying a late model, pretty expensive boats, the ocean is out there destroying them faster than we can fix them. So some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, even, you know, on a late model boat, still could be issues that need to be inspected, checked out, and or considered. So the plan. Always have to start with a plan. So for this presentation, what I'm going to do is mix it up. I mean, normally I'd be standing in front of a PowerPoint, so this whole online virtual boat show is new to us. So here it is. It's live time. It's video. So I'm going to show some little clips. We've shot over 30 plus videos just of this boat process, and it's not how-to. There's lots of how-to videos out there. We're just going to document how we make decisions and what we do, what it costs, and kind of the process start to finish, and just share that with everybody. So check it out. Here was the meeting when us knuckleheads decided, hey, let's buy a boat. So there's only one item on the agenda. I think the summer wrap up and cleanup is done. We're fine. But I I want to talk about our next project, because we always got to be 6 months out from the students, right? And I'm dreaming about a sailboat. Yeah.
Rowboat, sailboat,
whistle pisser.
Whistle pisser. Okay. Okay.
It's a lot more systems than a simple little motorboat.
It is. It is.
What size sailboat?
Well, I'm dreaming actually of like offshore sailboat, to be honest with you, like something not like a 24-foot free San Juan, you know, that's trying to get to us.
Right.
I'm thinking on a larger scale. So after that meeting, first thing I did is got on the phone, called John Neal. Been working with him for a number of years, offshore sailing, seminars, stuff like this, and said, John, here's our idea. We're buying this boat. What do you think? And I highly recommend getting some professional opinions, because he kind of locked in and reinforced some of the stuff that we knew. Don't buy a one-off boat designed by, you know, somebody we've never heard of. You know, you got to have a boat that's sellable at the end of the day. You know, whether you're a cruiser or a school, you have to. You don't want to put $100,000. You know, buy a boat for $50,000, put $100,000 into it, and sell it for $55,000. Okay, and that happens a lot. So doing some research helps. So John helped us out, and he's got 40 years of experience. So there's a lot of people buying boats, but there's a select few that that would make good candidates. And so lots of great advice from John. We were targeting 35 to 40 feet, something for a couple to sail, you know, just two people. And really, I think this was on our list. What do we want? We want a boat that's capable of going around the world. Not turnkey, sail across an ocean, but something that if you decided that's what you wanted to do, it would be there. So that right there eliminates a whole bunch of boats. If you're a coastal cruiser, which a lot of people in the Northwest are, and you want to go to Alaska and back, like I've done multiple times on this boat, well then that opens up your horizon to a lot more options of different boats, okay? And so, you know, everything is, you know, the way the boat world is. So, you know, my good friend Art says compromises and bad decisions. That's what boats are. So as luck would have it, we stumbled along. As soon as we started talking about buying a boat, one of my staff members, Jennifer, teaches electronics, runs her electronics business. She says, hey, I've got a boat. My dad bought a Westsail 39, and he finished out the interior. We sailed it to Mexico and Hawaii and back, and they lived aboard, and it's time to pay it forward. And, you know, should I ask him? And I said, yeah, let's ask him. And just like that, we went down, checked out the boat, and there it is. Watch this little clip here with Jennifer. 38 years of her life with her dad building it. So, Jennifer, here we go. We're taking your little boat away.
Yeah.
I hope you
Only
cash the
38
check.
years of my life.
Better cash that check quick.
Yes, I cashed a check already.
Okay, good. Didn't bounce. Good.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Matt, what do you got going on
Well,
down
I'm
here?
installing the fuel tank for the wind.
Yeah.
We got it's about 4 gallons. I
Perfect.
think it'll work.
We're just going down the ditch and around the bend, so God willing, old Volvo should take us that far, no worries. And you started it, Matt. We saw the video.
Yep.
So this is what we did. We checked to make sure the windlass worked. We wanted to have a parking brake because we spent 0 time working on this boat. We just wanted to get it to Anacortes. So if anything happened, we knew we could drop the hook and sort it out. We got underway, had our bilge pump in a bucket and a spare battery to cover any kind of flooding. And this is the Swinomish Channel that we went down. It was pumping good water, so we figured we had a good shake at making her all the way to Anacortes. But she was loud. That old Volvo really rattled quite a bit. But we're not complaining. She got us where we needed to be. So, Captain Matt, what do you think about the temperature of the old Swedish girl down there?
She's warm. She's a hot girl. She's a hot piece. We're not overly worried about her. We're concerned. That's why we're running at about 1,100 RPMs right now. We brought it up to, I think it was 1,600 RPMs. Started to hit in the 2 teens, you know, 215 or something like that. We brought her back down, and then we were at just hanging about 208 degrees Fahrenheit. And,
For a while.
And as you all know, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Fresh water. We have salt water in there. The whole engine salt water. This is an open cooling system. So we're right there. We're basically almost boiling. Definitely could cook a crab in it. But for now, we're making it. We're taking it easy on her. We're going to be watching temperatures.
So there you see, we got King's Pride from Shelter Bay over to Anacortes, hauled it out. And by the way, Jennifer's last name is King. That's the reason the boat's called King's Pride. The name stays, by the way. If the new owner wants bad luck, then they can change it. But we think it's super cool to have this Skagit Valley College connection. And so we knew it needed everything. I mean, we gave it a quick look, no survey, boom, hauled it, you know. And so the thing is, it had a good pedigree. You know, John Neal said yes. So first thing I did is we looked everything over, and I got a hold of Bob Perry. He designed the boat to save the Westsail. Hope it was a thought. And so Bob came up and hung out with us, let us video it. It was a delight for a legendary Northwest designer. Bob's been involved with our school quite a bit. He's a big supporter of what we do and training new technicians. So here's a minute and a half or so of Bob bringing up the plans and checking out the interior of the boat when we first got it here. I want to refit a boat, a sailboat. And I'm not, I want to do something that, has potential to get around the whole, So they said, all right, well, we have a budget. Well, not really. We're a community college. Yeah. So I scraped together all the money we had, and we went out on a mission looking for a boat. And John Neal was helping us, Yeah. He said, don't buy a turd, He said, there's a lot of them out there, and if you put a bunch of money into it, you'll never be able to sell it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so in a short window of time, one of my staff, Jennifer King, says, well, hey, her dad was pretty ill. And she says, I think Dad would part with our family boat that we've had for 38 years. And they wanted a little bit of money for it, of course, but she said, it's first it was a Westsail, she said, and then they said it was one of the Fairweather Mariners. And I'm like, and then, so we went and looked at it. Well, it's one of the owner completed models.
So it's a Westsail.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't build too many.
Well.
Oh, man.
I know boat designers don't like to see this.
Chair.
I know. I always worry, the boat designer going, wait a minute, this is nothing like what I do.
I couldn't even get in there.
No.
And if I did,
you never get back out?
I'd have to go in head first.
When we bought it, this was laying down here. The Volvos, I do like you have good engine access.
Oh, yeah.
You take this off. But I envisioned it with this more like different.
Yeah, why is it so wide?
Well, big double sink. So that might be a future modification, is to maybe narrow this up a little bit.
Yeah, just put a big single sink in.
So, plans continuing. We had to have a vision. And, my initial consulting with John was $50,000 or less purchase price. Truth be told, if we had a better budget, I think we'd be better off a little higher on the budget, because when you get below that, you're really looking at, the bargain boats, the ones that really need a lot of love. But we purchased the boat for $25,000. We were thinking that we're going to invest about $50,000. Okay? Well, what does that look like? Well, $10,000 in the rig, $15,000 in the engine, transmission, $10,000 in systems. We're going to need some new propane stuff, electrical, batteries, whatever. And then I said, you know what? Probably going to need 10 or 15,000 of miscellaneous stuff that you don't even think about, which happened right out the gate, right? You got to start buying tarps and, everything. The costs just go up and up and up and up. A crane to pull the mast, stuff like that. So the end of the day, though, we're just hoping to sell this boat for around $75,000. Lots of authentic learning for students. It's going to be great for them to go out and just see this happening, showcase our program. So our vision then for the new owners, because we're selling it, is somebody will be able to buy this boat for around $75,000, I'm guessing they're going to have to invest at least $25,000 more, because we are not doing some of the stuff that is easy. Meaning, it's going to need the mainsail's serviceable, pretty good shape. It's going to need a head sail, spinnaker, drifter, something like that. Those are easy for somebody to sort out what they want and do themselves. It's going to need an electronics package. And everybody is pretty unique in which manufacturer they want, where they want them located, stuff like that. So we're not going to do electronics. We are, however, going to put in depth and speed and some stuff which will be universal, that will talk with any manufacturer. And we're going to put a instrument on top of the mast, because if you have the mast off and you're doing that, it makes more sense to do it now and not send somebody aloft. But we're going to do that. Upholstery, canvas work, like what color canvas would we like? It's got a hard top Dodger. It's going to need the canvas replaced, but we're leaving that up to the new owner. So that kind of stuff is, going to be up to the owner. So they're going to have, upwards of $100,000 to $120,000 into this boat. But it should be then ready to do our goal. We would love somebody to buy it and do a 7-year-ish circumnavigation. We think that this boat will do it. John Neal has sailed on Westsail 39, said they sailed brilliantly. Bob Perry's a fan of the design. Boat's already done a little loop there in the Pacific. So we'll see. It's not going to be new, obviously. The inside is, it's 30 years old, but it's serviceable. And we think, a new boat in this size category around the world, we're talking $500,000, $500,000 entry. So for pricing, we think it's a good idea. We'll know now a little bit later down the road. We're still in the honeymoon stage. So we got everything out, and we even got Art in there with our old-fashioned steam cleaner once it was gutted and just steam cleaned and pressure washed. And if you want to do this, and this does go back to the idea of when you do a refit, are you going to do one system at a time and continue to use your boat? Or in our case, do you just want to commit to a year and just go for it and do it all at once? Now, when I say a year, we got a crew. Your own individual situation might be different. But we just decided to go for it. Let's gut the boat, take everything off the boat, the upholstery and on and on, everything off the boat, so that we can just start fresh. And I still recommend it. It's been awesome. It's been a long road. So, we had a forklift, lift the motor out. That's some of the stuff that's very helpful. But we got our platform, our dream is sitting there ready to go. It's like an artist, with a mostly blank canvas. We can start painting it the way we want. So we're pretty excited about that. We did, one of the things that you can follow for data is I put a little trip counter, a little, people counter at the top of the staircase, and been trying to, not everybody does, but most students, whenever you go up to work on the boat, to take off some upholstery, to take off, some teak trim, and to take off, we took all the cabinet doors and doors off to put them away for safekeeping, except for the one that got broke. There's a little tech tip about that on our channel. But anyways, we're up to, by the time this video airs, 1,000 trips up and down the staircase.
We're aboard the Westsail 39 that Skagit Valley College Marine Tech program has purchased and is going to do a refit and then sell. A good design, Robert Perry design, one of his best designs. A 40-year-old boat.
You went through the list with Mike to choose what kind of boat would be good for
We
the
did.
college.
We went through the list of 400 boats that we have on our website, mahina.com, and this was one of the boats on that list.
You might have wanted to keep your shoes on.
Wow. Moly monkey.
Wow. This is a big project.
Oh, it's an immense project.
It's really good you're documenting this, because so many people their budget allows them to buy a 40-year-old boat, and they have no idea.
I would never recommend it.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the deck and the upper structure of the boat. after we pressure washed it and brought it in. We knew that it needed a significant amount of work. Everything. We're pulling the windlass off, the foot switches, the sail tracks, chain plates, you name it. It had to come off. And Amanda had asked me when her and John were there visiting about, I think it was John said, "Are you going to put a tent over the boat?" No, why would he do that? And I'll never forget our October update. I was down in the boat and everything was leaking. Inside it was wet. The 10-day forecast in the phone says rain, 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 rain. And I realized that if we're going to do a proper job and put thickened epoxy around every deck penetration, rebed every fitting, we had to shrink wrap the boat. Something we hadn't done, hadn't budgeted for, planned on. There's the thing. So in order to make it done right, that's what we did. So thanks to North Harbor Diesel, one of our sponsors, we got some remnant stainless hoops, and they let us use their shrink wrap gun, and got all the supplies from fisheries. And anyways, we shrink wrapped it, and that was a low point in the beginning of tearing the whole boat apart, to all of a sudden now it's November and we are just ready to rock. It's dry. We put in some plywood platforms to make ease of access on and off the boat. Once again, it's 1,000 trips. Let's make it easy, make it productive. We added a heater, permanently installed electric heater to keep the boat at a reasonable temperature. We used a big commercial dehumidifier and got the boat dry. And now, right now, we're looking at this going, this is awesome. We are ready to work. And so it's just a big step moving forward. But once again, planning, put it in your budget. You got to be comfortable when you're doing this stuff. You can't go out and work a 3 or 4 hour shift if it's freezing and wet, and So that was a huge deal for us, and we are super excited. It does mean that we're not going to be able to put the mast back on for a little while. It's going to cause some issues that way, but overall, a good way to go. So wasn't horribly expensive if you're going to work in our area. Now, if you're working, it just depends where you're working. But having the boat covered and dry to do this kind of a refit was significant. So we're pretty pleased with our work and happy that it's happening that way. So before we wrap the boat, though, I should back up. In the fall, we have a rigging class. And our rigging class is about a number of things, but one big component is sailboat rigging, half of the class. And so we took the rig off. We knew it was going to happen. Worked with Quinn, Northwest Rigging. He's awesome. He actually teaches part of our class for us. But we took the mast off, brought it in the shop, did a big assessment. Exactly as we had thought, we needed to replace the standing rigging. It hadn't been done. And kind of the industry standard is about every 10 years, if you want to cross oceans, or actually just safety, if you don't want your mast to fall down and bonk one of your kids in the head, or your spouse, it's a good idea. So we started budgeting for all of those things. And of course, the running rigging will also need to be addressed, but that'll be in the spring. So if you're still buying a boat, or even if you own your boat, highly recommend that you get a survey, a rigging survey. So a survey is one thing. By the way, we didn't do that at all, but that's because we knew we were buying a bottom refit everything boat. But get an additional rigger to actually talk about your boat. So if you're buying a boat, you have reasonable expectations. We knew going in, we figured $10,000 on the rig. Come to find out, that didn't cover it. It did cover, it covered a good chunk of it, but if you see our spreadsheet, we also bought a boat without a roller furler, so we're adding a roller furler. We got it down and realized that it was going to need paint, right? So, unforeseen. And the thing is, it was a lot of labor. So if you don't mind working, it's okay. It took a good amount of energy for our staff and students, because in order to paint the mast, I think if you were to pay for it professionally, you'd be better off just to buy a new mast. It'd be cheaper. But we had labor, so we took everything off, completely stripped it, sanded it, prepped it, and then we painted it. And that's, you know, because my good friend Michael, Rolfing's Yacht Repair or Yacht Painting. He doesn't do repair, he paints stuff. He's an artist. It's beautiful. He came in and helped us out. We did have a nice big warm dry shop. But you got to remember, if you don't and you're going to paint a mast, well, you got to think about building a structure and how you're going to do that. So you might get lucky and just have a non-painted mast, right? A little more industrial looking, and it doesn't require painting. So, but we're ready to reinstall our mast right now, mostly on budget, a little over, but we're going to have the sail rig. So that is one of the big components on a refit like this. We got to have a solid mast and rigging to you know, for propulsion for this boat. And so we're on track. It'll be rigged. We've bought the rigging. It's being reassembled. It'll be waiting here in a few months. We'll set that thing back on and bring a lot of life back to this. Okay, let's back up. We just talked about rigging and a couple things. All the important stuff. Should have mentioned this earlier. You got to have a good design. You got to have a place to work, a timeline. You got to have a budget, stuff like that. But ultimately, for us, if I look at a boat that I'm going to consider taking off cruising in, started with the rig, we covered that. Tanks, super important. You got to have clean tanks, both for water and most importantly, fuel. Fuel tanks, contaminated fuel tanks cause endless problems, so that's important. Steering is ultimately critical, okay? This could actually be a life or death one. So the steering system on every boat, old boat, refit, needs to be inspected, updated, checked. Propulsion, gone are the days of driving around without some sort of propulsion. There's a few exceptions, but trust me, most of us sailors really rely on our diesel motors. So propulsion, key, and then of course electrical. You got, I mean, all our boats, we want our creature comfort, so electricity is super important. And then systems in general, you know, everything. The anchor system, windlass, refrigeration, propane for cooking, on and systems. So you want to really outline your project, and what we're talking about today is those systems. And so we'll keep covering those as we go along here. Okay, next step was tanks. Mentioned it was a big one, and it is. So we pulled out all the tanks and gave them a good inspection. Now, you don't necessarily have to remove the tanks from the boat. We were fortunate in our boat that you could, but at a minimum, you got to get an inspection port put in there. And they're readily available. We did a tech tip about it. If you can't see inside of your tanks, you got a problem. You're going to figure that out. So if you're still in that boat buying process, make sure that you can access the top or at least one side of every tank so you can get in and do a proper inspection. And think about, if it has to be replaced, what are you going to do? Tanks don't last forever. So on our boat, we had one tank that was leaking, reported from the owner, and it was empty, and sure enough it was. And we got fortunate. It was a very custom shaped tank. The only reason it was leaking was because it had gotten in contact with battery acid and the hull. Two little issues, two little spots. We fixed them, back in business. Our main stainless tank is in good shape. We're changing it because of the access port and stuff. And so the thing is, especially if you want to build a world cruiser, that you need a fuel system that you can pull samples from, a stripping port, sample port, whatever you call it. So we're setting up the main tank that way, where we will pull engine to the fuel to the engine. That's the way it's going to run all the time through some good filtration. The lowest point, we can pull a sample, and that tank holds about 40 gallons. And then our auxiliary tank that we've repaired, we're going to paint and put back in place. It also has 33 gallons of usable. The last half a gallon or so is at the bottom where our stripping port is, so you can put fuel in there. You can pull a sample, make sure it doesn't have anything contaminated. But once you run the main tank down a ways, you open a valve and let gravity feed it. So everything from the engine comes from the main tank. It's going to be a really nice system. The other beauty of this system is that back tank has the fuel fill in the cockpit area. So if you wanted to carry more than 75 gallons of fuel, you could actually, if you have to dump a 5-gallon can and you're not up on the side of the boat in a seaway, you're in the cockpit where it's safer. So we believe we've got a nice designed fuel system. It's going to have the Raycor fuel filter. It's going to have an electric priming pump. All of these good things. But in your budget and as you look at a boat, fuel tanks is a big deal. So make sure you got a good, clean supply of fuel for your sailboat project. Once you've assessed and sorted out and done all of your tanks, which we have done, at the same time we were working over our steering system. And as I mentioned, the steering system is absolutely critical. You can't be losing steering. So as with most old boats, we hauled it out. The rudder was like drip. It leaked for about 36 hours. So yeah, we took it off, which is no small task, you know, pulling the gudgeon and the whole rudder, and brought it into our shop, because a lot of times on rudders, which are primarily stainless, poor quality of stainless or stainless without oxygen and these issues, if the plate, you got your rudder post that's welded on, fails, you lose steering, and that's bad. So we drilled some holes in it, and we got lucky. Our rudder was in like perfect shape inside. However, we've now drilled holes in it, and it was old and had some other issues. The leaking, come to find out, was because it was just a tube, and it had a really tight fit in the bearing at the bottom. And so it took 36 hours for that whole tube to drain the seawater out. And so the inside of the tube looks good. Everything looks good. So we're just in the process of, you know, now that it's off, well, we should do a little fairing here and a little bit of work here. We're going to put epoxy barrier coat on it and make sure that it's ready to last another 30 years, which is how old this boat is. So that's a huge deal. In fact, we're going to end up probably, we know we are, the boat's got a bunch of layers of bottom paint on it, and so that's just a side note. There goes a couple more weeks of your life, but it needs to be stripped, put a barrier, even though it has very little issues, but put barrier coat on it, new bottom paint, and send it out. So along with the rudder though, with lack of inspection, is we got the quadrant pulled off, and look at these pictures. The packing gland, completely green, overgrown, not working, needs to be a better design. So it's serviceable. It was not serviceable before, so we're going to clean and fix that. The quadrant, back to this inspection, even a surveyor can't get down normally and inspect all these components. It's up to the boat owner on a big refit to really take it apart, because the quadrant looked great until you got to the bottom. Look at this. It's all corroded and was eating up from the bottom up. Now, it wasn't like it was going to fail tomorrow, but it probably wouldn't go another 10 years, and so that's our goal. So you get a hold of Edson, luckily. They're still in business. We can get a new quadrant, we can get a new chain and cable set and everything, and freshen our steering. While we're at it, you couldn't remove the rudder when the boat was hauled and blocked. You'd have to lift it way up, which wasn't an option. So we're putting a sleeve in the rudder with a big arm for a below deck autopilot. This is not something we're providing, but in a refit, you also have to think about, on a boat built for a couple, you don't want somebody to have to steer all the time. And so it has one time it had a hydro vane. It still has all the bracketry. But a lot of times a good cruising boat will have two systems, a below deck autopilot, you know, for motoring and the comms and things like this, and a self-steering gear. So we are working on that as well when we put it back together. But once again, that wasn't something we had planned on. We just know, like, oh, hey, got a beautiful new rudder. We're installing it. Let's put a bearing on the top, put an arm for an autopilot. It had an old wheel pilot, which worked, but it was marginal. And the emergency tiller was a little piece of pipe that was kind of a joke. If you actually had to steer for multiple days with it, I don't think I would be happy. So we're going to retrofit and put on better emergency steering. So the steering system is worth a long conversation, a lot of cups of coffee, a lot of inspection. And so that's what we did. Okay, next little section is on propulsion. And I could do an entire video series about propulsion. A lot of the new engines are even better than the old engines, so we're going to be in good shape that way. But we went down the road of a lot of scenarios because our engine was in the middle of the galley, which had great serviceability, but it really wasn't where Bob Perry had designed it to be. And so, because it was owner completed. And what we really wanted to do was to move the motor back like it was supposed to be. And then we realized it wasn't put on with a couple of degree angle, so you couldn't get the propeller shaft out. And so we've modified some cabinets and done a nice mock-up of our new engine. For us, because it's not a factory boat, it's one extra step, which is a few more weeks of work in engineering. We've got to move the strut or build a new strut. It's the type assembly. We've got to take the stern tube out and relocate it so that we can move the motor back and where it's supposed to be. So it's going to be much better at the end of the day. But once again, you start looking at things and 2-3 weeks of work happens just like that. And so, but it needed to be done. The old coupling on the stern tube, you really couldn't even get in there to repack it. And because of that, we had salt water, and then it turned into a rust bucket, and on and on. So we needed to make that better. And we really didn't want to move the engine forward. We actually wanted the engine to go aft. So we went to Bob Perry's original drawings. Yeah, it was supposed to be that way. So be careful on things that owners have done. If you get a factory boat, you should never have to do that extensive work that we did. You should be able to remove an old engine, throw it overboard, the old carcass, degrease, steam clean, paint, drop in a new replacement engine. We're going to repower with a Yanmar 4JH. It's a 45 horsepower. It's new technology, high pressure common rail. These engines have proven themselves. They're really good. Disclosure, we actually own this engine. It's part of our inventory. It's got like 15 hours on it. It's in the shop, and so it's perfect. We can actually just work with it, set it in the boat, and use it. And so we've used it for a little bit of testing of alternator upgrades, which is something we're going to do on King's Pride. And so yeah, that's our engine. Nice little Yanmar. Bob Perry said 45 horses, pretty good to push this boat around. You should have no worries. And so engine's a big ticket item. Remember, take the cost of the engine, and if you're paying somebody to do it, when you start doing all of your exhaust system and hoses and all of the systems around it, you can almost double that if you're having a boatyard do a repower. Big consideration. If you can find a boat that's had a recent repower on your short list, the boat you like, huge deal. So pay attention to those small details. Okay, coming up, what's next? Systems this spring. Gonna get to the fun stuff now. We've sorted out steering and tanks and stuff. Propulsion. So big focus this spring is going to be the electrical system, propane systems, how to do it right, tank storage, how to test the propane system, plumbing. The boat's going to have all new plumbing, sanitation system, right? All of this stuff. So systems, that's what's coming this spring. And a big part of this process, and part of the reason for doing a presentation here with the Seattle Boat Show, we are professional educators. We just want to share everything, share knowledge. It's about learning for us. And so we want to do that. We want to do it right. So along with documenting with videos, we have a website set up, descriptions, it's got a blog, it's got photos, it's got the important stuff. It's got a spreadsheet of cost, like actually how much money we've spent just on equipment, no labor, just the parts, the bits, the things we need to make it done. And we are also going to try and put in estimated hours. So check that out. Some really good information. That's what we want to do. We want to share that. You can ask, feel free to chime in, ask questions, stuff like that. That's the important part of these projects. And hopefully as a college and a training center, we can do this every year and have like 10 years worth of data pretty soon. So that would be super cool for us. So we did make up some preliminary decisions I think that have happened along the way we didn't talk about yet. And so one of them is we're just setting up a DC offshore cruising boat, meaning no air conditioning, no generator. It's just a nice platform to go out cruising on. We're going to do some really good refrigeration. We've learned a lot of things about that, putting the condenser in the ocean and stuff. So good refrigeration. We're obviously going to have a nice battery system. Our goal is we're looking at having dual inputs and a transformer so that you could plug in Europe or the US. Stay tuned for that. That should be some good dialogue and discussions. Batteries. We're not going to probably do lithium, although we believe in it. We're talking about it, installing it on 3 boats right now. We want to think about where can we fix this boat, in a tropical island or something, and proven technology. So we have decided we're working on currently. They're changing the V-berth was a setup for a single. We're having some woodworkers turn it into a true double, the way Bob Perry designed it. And so we're making these decisions, but there's, like I said, we're moving the engine over and back, and there are so many decisions to be made when you start refitting a boat like this. And so, but it's good. What are the lessons learned? Well, it's still fun. You can see it in the videos. We're having a good time. We believe this needs to be done and shared with everybody. Always more time and energy than anyone would think, And so if you really watch the stuff and get down into when we say we're just moving the engine bed stringers, a huge deal. Painting a mast, huge deal. So if you want to refit a boat, just make sure you're paying attention and know worst case scenario, how bad it can get. And if you're paying, part of this also is, I know boat yards, you think they're always trying to gouge you and sell you up, and if you're paying professionals to do the work, but just remember that the behind the scenes, it's always twice as much work as you probably think it should be. And so unless you're there doing it yourself, and then from your sweat equity that it is twice as much as you thought, that's something to take away. All right, as I wrap this up, one thing I really want to do is thank our sponsors so far. Being a school, most of you know our industry needs a lot of new technicians, and that's our primary goal, is to train people to go out and fix boats. But we've had Pacific Marine Center in Anacortes helping us out, John Neal with Mahina Expeditions, North Harbor Diesel's been our go-to. They help us out. Fisheries Supply, we buy so much stuff from them. They're always helping us out. Fiberglass Supply here up in the Skagit Valley, another one. The Skagit Valley College Foundation. The list goes on and on. And so what's happening is, with this project, behind the scenes, if we get some donations, that helps preserve our budget. And so when we resell the boat, we can use all of that money and some of the donations to fund the next project. And so that's where we're at. We are also excited. You'll see in the future, we've got a sail away package coming from Anacortes that just says, here's the thing, we believe in this. It's going to be awesome. So once you buy this particular boat and put on your electronics and stuff, the new owner is going to get some cool stuff. John and Amanda Neal are like, hey, let's give them a free weekend seminar pass so you can attend one of their offshore sailing seminars. And they're going to do some consulting. The Wagner guide, Mark, is going to give the cruising guides and some half-day consulting on weather and stuff to go around Vancouver Island. That would be the perfect shakedown cruise, is to leave and go up the inside and check all your systems and then sail down the outside of Vancouver Island. Bob Perry said he'd give, he'll sign a set of the prints and maybe one of his books for whoever buys it. We're going to send the new owners off with a GoPro, and hopefully they'll send some videos back so we can show our students, you did this, you built this boat, and now somebody is out there living the dream. And so, and it goes on and on. There's a whole list of sponsors and things that are happening with our sail away package. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. And so here's my contact information about me and who I am. If you know anybody who's looking for training, who either A, wants to go out and work in the industry or start a business or spend a year with us and just learn how to fix their boats so they can go off cruising, I'm the person to talk to, Michael Beemer with Skagit Valley College. Check out our YouTubes, the Skagit Valley Scallywags, and the cruiserscollege.org. So, thanks for watching.